Ever since God of War, Ragnarok ended, one question has echoed across the fandom. What's next? We know Kratos' story isn't truly over, but when that final moment came, when he looked upon his mural and saw a future where he's worshipped instead of feared, it felt like a goodbye. And in that silence, another path opened. Atreus, no longer a boy shadowed by his father's legend, but a young god standing at the edge of a new world. A world filled with new realms, new gods, and new destinies. So let's talk about what the story of the Atreus game might look like, his journey, his enemies, and the new mythology waiting just beyond the horizon. When Ragnarok ended, Atreus told Kratos something simple but powerful. I need to find out who the giants are. I need to do this alone. That line wasn't just a farewell, it was a mission statement for the next era of God of War. The Atreus game would likely begin right where that moment left off, Atreus stepping through a mystic gateway into an unfamiliar realm, armed only with his bow, his magic, and his determination to find the remaining giants. But here's the twist, it's not just about finding them, it's about understanding them. Because the giants, as we've learned, were never just a race of towering beings. They were storytellers, seers, creators, beings connected deeply to fate and the threads of the cosmos. And if even a few of them survived Odin's destruction, then their knowledge could reshape reality itself. That's where Atreus comes in. As the last known bearer of their legacy, he might be the only one capable of reuniting what's left of their world. So what would that world look like? After Ragnarok, the 9 realms were forever changed. The destruction of Asgard, the fall of Odin, and the breaking of the old order would create a vacuum, and chaos always rushes to fill the void. The new Atreus game could take place across a fragmented world, pieces of the 9 realms merging with other mythological lands. We might see influences from Celtic mythology, Egyptian mythology, or even Hindu mythology, depending on how far the developers decide to expand the universe. Each new land could have its own gods, rules, and balance of power, and Atreus, being both giant and god, wouldn't belong fully to any of them. That duality would define his journey. He's a bridge between worlds, part mortal, part divine, part chaos, part destiny, and wherever he goes, that identity would challenge both him and those around him. Now let's talk about the story itself. The Atreus game would probably be structured around his search for the surviving giants, who may be scattered across dimensions or hidden within alternate realms of time and space. But along the way, Atreus might uncover something deeper, that the giants never wanted to be found. In the aftermath of Odin's tyranny, perhaps they chose to fade away, hiding their essence within nature itself, within rivers, mountains, and stars. That realization could force Atreus to confront a painful truth. Maybe he's the last giant not because the others died, but because they chose to let their era end. This theme, learning when to hold on and when to let go, would mirror Kratos' own arc. Kratos had to let go of vengeance. Atreus might have to let go of legacy. But of course, it wouldn't be God of War without conflict. If there's one thing mythological worlds never lack, it's gods who fear change. With Asgard destroyed, the balance of power among the remaining pantheons would shift. Other deities would take notice of Atreus, the son of a foreign god, carrying ancient giant magic and wielding Loki's name like a weapon. To them, he'd be a threat, a remnant of chaos capable of reshaping fate. This could introduce new antagonists, perhaps a Celtic war goddess like the Morrigan, who sees Atreus' power as a danger to the natural order, or an Egyptian deity like Set, the god of storms and disorder, who sees a kindred spirit and a rival. Imagine Atreus caught in the middle of these mythological wars, trying to find peace while every pantheon wants to use him as a pawn. That's where the story could evolve from a personal journey to something cosmic, exploring how the concept of Loki exists across mythologies. Because Loki isn't just a name, it's an archetype, the trickster, the changer, the one who breaks patterns so new ones can form. The Atreus game might explore how every culture has its own version of Loki, and Atreus may realize that his destiny isn't to find the giants, but to become what they represented, the embodiment of change. Now let's talk about Kratos. While this would be Atreus' story, it's hard to imagine a God of War game without his father's presence. Kratos' journey in Ragnarok ended with him finding peace, but peace doesn't mean absence. We might see Kratos again through visions, memories, or even magical communication across realms. He could act as a guide, a distant voice of wisdom, reminding Atreus of who he is and what he stands for. But there's also room for tension. Atreus' independence means he'll have to make choices his father wouldn't approve of, morally grey decisions that could blur the line between hero and villain. We might even see him begin to mirror some of Kratos' old flaws, pride, anger, impulsiveness, as he grapples with power and responsibility. In that sense, the game could be as much about avoiding Kratos' fate as it is about living up to his legacy. Visually and tonally, the Atreus game could feel very different from the Norse saga. Where Kratos' journey was grounded in brutality, survival, and emotional redemption, Atreus' world could be more ethereal, full of ancient magic, lost civilizations, and surreal landscapes. Imagine exploring forests where the trees whisper in giant runes, deserts hiding tombs of forgotten gods, or celestial realms where time flows backward. Atreus' ability to communicate with animals and spirits could also play a huge role in gameplay. Perhaps he can summon mythological creatures, read divine languages, or manipulate the environment using rune magic inherited from the giants. It would blend exploration and mystery, less about rage, more about discovery. But make no mistake, when the combat comes, it'll be ferocious. Atreus' agility and magic could create a combat system that feels like a fusion of ranged precision, elemental manipulation, and fast-paced melee. A mix of bow, spirit summoning, and runic powers that would make him one of the most versatile protagonists in modern gaming. And thematically, the game could explore something powerful, the weight of legacy. Kratos spent his life fighting his nature, trying to change who he was. Atreus' journey could be about realizing that sometimes you have to embrace who you are, not as a curse, but as a choice. He might not be the god of war, or the god of mischief, or even the god of fate. He might be something new. A god of renewal. Someone who breaks cycles not through violence, but through understanding, the perfect evolution of the series' themes. Because if God of War is ultimately a story about fathers and sons, then the Atreus game could be about what happens when the son steps into the world on his own, carrying everything his father taught him, and everything he still has to learn. And in the end, maybe, just maybe, the story closes with Atreus finally finding what he's been looking for, not the giants, not his destiny, but a place where he belongs. Maybe he finds the last of his people. Or maybe he realizes that being the last giant isn't a burden, it's a gift. A chance to shape the future instead of being bound to the past. Because just like his father before him, Atreus was never meant to follow someone else's story. He was meant to write his own. If you enjoyed this deep dive into what the story of an Atreus game could look like, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more God of War theories, lore breakdowns, and mythology explorations. And tell me in the comments, if Atreus got his own game, which mythology would you want him to explore next? Egyptian, Celtic, or something completely new? Whatever world he ends up in, one thing's certain. The story of God of War isn't over. It's just changing hands.